In this video, we are going to show you how to replace your front subframe crossmember on this Jeep Patriot. This will be located under the front of your vehicle. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To replace this subframe, safely raise and support the front of the vehicle with your suspension hanging. Once you've done that, we're going to remove both front wheels. To remove the wheel, you're going to find you have 5 19mm lug nuts in a center cover. Let's remove all of those. We've got this one off. Now repeat the process on the other side. Now to be able to gain access, we're going to have to remove our lower skid shield from this area. Along each side of the vehicle, inside of the front wheel well, you should find that you have 2 push pins. One of ours is missing in this area, but for the push pins, as you know, just go ahead and carefully remove the center to remove them. Same thing for this one. Now, once you have one side dislodged, I like to go over to the other side of the vehicle and repeat this exact same process. For the other side of the vehicle, you do not typically have to remove the wheel. You can just reach up and behind. After dislodging both sides, we're making our way to the back side of that skid shield. You're going to find that you have 3 10mm headed mounting bolts to remove here. We're going to have to hold the shield up while we continue along the front. In the front, we'll also have 10mm mounting bolts. Now we have our 3 10mm bolts here in the front. Should be able to take this down. Now that we have the shield off, we have a clear view of our front subframe. Along the back side of it, we can see some power steering lines. We'll be getting to those, but first we're going to make our way up along this area. We can see that we have a bracket that goes from the subframe all the way up to a motor mount. Now, if you were looking all the way up along the top of it, in this area here, you're going to find a 16mm headed mounting bolt that comes through from the passenger side through the mount towards the driver's side. To break this mounting bolt free, typically I just use a socket with an extension all the way over towards the passenger side. Once I have it loose, you can continue on with a ratcheting wrench if necessary. Now, once you have that fully loosened, you may find that you still have a hard time removing the bolt. If that's the case, just gently lift up on this area. Let's make our way all the way down towards the crossmember. We'll remove our 2 16mm headed mounting bolts. Now that we've removed those 2 mounting bolts, you're going to make your way straight across the front of the subframe here. If you find that bolt, just go ahead and make your way directly above it. This is where your next mounting bolt is going to be located, holding this bracket to the subframe. Now, this one's going to be fairly difficult to gain access to, especially if you have an all-wheel drive model. You can tell there really isn't very much room. So I have a 16mm on a swivel with an extension. We'll make our way straight down into this area so we can remove our mounting bolt. To gain access to this, you can make your way through the driver's side wheel well. Start getting this aligned. Just got a magnet. We'll move just underneath that area. Now we can start removing this 18mm headed bolt. Now this is holding this crossmember. The crossmember leads all the way over towards the front of the vehicle, and it also has an engine mount along the front. Now we'll make our way towards the front. We're going to remove our front engine mount through bolt. For this, we're using a 16 millimeter. The two forward bolts are 15 millimeter bolts. Keep in mind, these are the last things holding this to the vehicle. We'll be holding onto that cross member as we remove the final mounting bolt. Slide that out of place. It's time to remove both of our front lower control arms. For this, on each side of the vehicle, you want to start at where your ball joint goes through your front knuckle. You're going to find that there's a through bolt. This bolt is a 15 millimeter headed bolt, and on the back side, you're going to have an 18 millimeter nut. Go ahead and remove that through bolt. And tap that through. We'll use some penetrant in this area. Continuing on, we want to pay attention to the steering knuckle itself. You're going to find that this actually has two ears. We want to try to make our way in between and gently start separating them. Eventually, we need to start pulling this ball joint down and through. Once you do have movement, we can pause here. We'll make our way to the next mounting point. For this bolt, we're using a 21 millimeter. With that out of place, let's make our way all the way back here. We're using a 21 millimeter for our bolt head and a 21 millimeter up along the top for the mounting nut. Let's start prying this out of place. You can tell it's already separated from our steering knuckle. The last place we have to pay attention to is along the back side. It's where we have a hockey puck looking bushing. Just flex this as necessary until we can get it out of position. Just a quick inspection of our front lower control arm. If it looks like anything's damaged or this needs to be replaced, now's a perfect time to do so. This looks fine, we'll set it aside. That one's out of here. Go over to the other side of the vehicle and repeat this exact same process. We need to get the control arm out of the vehicle. Continuing on, if we were looking inside of each one of our front wheel wells, you can see your sway bar. It makes its way up and over your inner tie rod end. Follow the sway bar to its inboard mounting point. In this area, you can see our sway bar bushings and their bracket. For each of these two 13 millimeter bolts, I've used some penetrant. Now at this point, you do not need to remove the bushing or the bushing bracket from this area. You can if you want to thoroughly inspect. Typically, you can just go ahead and leave those in place. Go over to the other side of the vehicle and remove that side sway bar bushing mounting bolts as well. Have a look along the front of your subframe. We can see where our power steering rack goes directly above the top of it, and there's a protective metal shield. The metal shield is held in place with two 10 millimeter bolts up along the front area here. For this, I'm just using a ratcheting wrench. Now that we have those two bolts off of there, we're going to follow our shield up and over the power steering rack. Along the back side of it, you're going to find a 13 millimeter headed mounting bolt. We'll remove that so we can dislodge our shield. There's that. Grab that shield, slide it right out of the way. Just a quick inspection of that and we'll set it aside. As you make your way in and behind that sway bar, you're going to find a small mounting bracket with a 10mm headed mounting bolt. We'll remove that mounting bolt using a ratcheting wrench. There's our bolt. Now we have movement from that bracket, we're going to continue on underneath this area towards the driver's side. In this area we have another mounting bracket. This one's actually held in place with a plastic push clip. For this, I like to make my way underneath the bracket. I'm going to tap, driving the plastic push clip up and out of the subframe. Try to get close to the subframe here. We'll start tapping this. It's common for these to be stuck in there. Let's go ahead and give that a quick inspection. This looks good. The next thing we want to do is attempt to tie our power steering rack to our exhaust manifold. Once we start removing the power steering rack, we want that to stay with the engine and the manifold, leaving the subframe. For this, I'm using a bungee cord. Now in this same area, we're going to dislodge the bracket that we had separated from our subframe. Looking up in this area, we can see one of our power steering rack mounting bolts. To get this out of here, I'm going to be using a 17mm ratcheting wrench. Okay. Now that we got that one out, let's go over to the other side. In this area, you can see that our mounting bolt is directly underneath our exhaust pipe. You can completely unscrew this. You do not have to remove it from the rack. Just make sure you don't get your tool stuck. There we are. Apply upward support under your subframe. Now we're going to move along each side of the vehicle. You're going to have to remove two 18mm mounting bolts. Now after applying support, we're going to make our way along each side of the subframe. We have to remove the bolts, but before we start removing the bolts, it's a good idea to make a clear marking where your original subframe is located opposed to the body of the vehicle. You can use pretty much anything to mark this. Once you've made clear markings on one side of the vehicle, go over to the other side and repeat this exact same process. After that, we'll continue on removing these bolts. We've got our 18mm for each of these bolts. This one. Now at this point, we still have support underneath the subframe. We're going to remove each of our two rearward mounting bolts. You want to be extremely careful. The subframe does not fall down on you. These are the last things holding it up, aside from your support. Carefully start lowering your subframe. We can remove this from the vehicle. There it is, friend. All right, now it's time to install our brand new front subframe assembly. We'll take this and get it in position. Now we're going to apply support under this area and we can start in all four of our mounting bolts. Okay, this is getting close. Let's continue on with our four mounting bolts. We'll be using the long mounting bolts with the washers attached. So now here's where we're going to start making our adjustment for our subframe as opposed to the body. As you remember, we marked along both sides of the body of the vehicle, so we have a clear marking of where this subframe needs to sit. I can see that I'm aligned here. I'm going to focus up along this area as well. Now, after confirming that both of these look like they're properly aligned, it's a good idea to go over to the other side of the vehicle and take a quick peek. After confirming everything's aligned as it should be, continue on snugging and torquing these mounting bolts. The torque for these is 118 foot-pounds. Okay, this looks good. Okay, still aligned. That looks good as well. We'll just double check the other side real quick, and then I'm going to torque these to that 118 foot-pounds. Remove support from this area. Now we're going to focus on securing the power steering rack to that subframe. We still have our mounting bolt in this area. We want to thoroughly inspect it. For this, I'm just going to use a pry bar. Up along the top of the subframe, you can see our sway bar. I'm prying against that in this area right down along here, and we can lift up on the engine. Now that we're doing this, carefully remove the mounting bolt. Just be extremely careful for any pinch points. Let's go ahead and replace those two mounting bolts now. We're using the bolts that have the washers. Now at this point, you may have to adjust the power steering rack around to align the mounting bolt ports. We want to make sure we start each of these in by hand. Let's get the other one in place as well. They're both started in. I'm going to snug them up. To be able to gain access with a torque wrench for your passenger side power steering rack mounting bolt, you may have to apply pressure underneath your tail shaft. They're snug. Torque those to 52 foot-pounds. Now we can remove our bungee cord or whatever you had holding that power steering rack up. Now we're going to secure our power steering lines. We have our bracket towards the driver's side. This bracket's held in place with a plastic push clip. We just need to line this up, press it in. Now over on the other side of these lines, looking up along the top of our subframe, we're going to align the mounting ports. We'll start in our 10mm bolt and snug it up. Double check to make sure those lines are properly secured. We do not want these getting damaged in any way. It's time for the sway bar bushings. We have the brackets already attached to the bushings. Go ahead and start in your mounting bolts. After they're all started in, just go ahead and snug them up. You can move this around as necessary. All right, we've got them started in. Let's go ahead and start snugging these up. After starting in and snugging these mounting bolts, I'm going to torque them to 30 foot-pounds. Repeat the process on the other side of the vehicle. Now once we have both of the sway bar bushing brackets fully attached, it's time to resecure our shield. We're going to take this metal shield, bring it up and over our power steering rack, and we're going to start in our 13mm headed mounting bolt along the back side here. After that, we'll make our way along the forward side of the shield so we can secure it to that subframe. Now let's make our way up to the front of the shield here. We're going to install our hardware holding this in place. I'm using some plastic push clips. Get this bracket in place as well. This has our motor mount attached to it. Start in your 2 forward mounting bolts. We're going to leave these loose for now. Now to get this aligned, we're applying light pressure underneath the backside of our transmission here. That's going to pivot things for us. We'll start bringing this up so we can put in our through bolt once everything's properly aligned. Start that bolt in. We'll snug these. Now that we have all of these snug, we can remove our support and we'll continue on torquing. They're all snug, so I'm going to start torquing. We're going to go with a through bolt that goes through the engine mount. 48 foot-pounds here. The 2 forward mounting bolts will be 58 foot-pounds. All the way back here, 95 foot-pounds. Now we're making our way along the back side of the subframe again. We're going to start reattaching our mounting point for our rear engine mount. We'll just rest this down in place. We have our 2 rearward mounting bolts. Start them both in, but leave them loose for now. There's that one. Let's get this one in here. We have plenty of movement here still. Let's move along to our forward mounting bolt. So we're up here. We can still move the bracket around as necessary. We'll start installing our next mounting bolt. This one we're going to leave loose as well. Just going to try to get this in place using a magnet. We'll guide it up there. Now looking up in this area, I can tell that I have to adjust the height of my engine and transmission so I can get this aligned. We'll carefully apply pressure underneath our transmission. I'm using a block of wood, of course. We don't want to cause any damage. Now that we have that aligned, let's continue on with our mounting bolt. Now you may find that it's fairly difficult to get this aligned. You may have to raise or lower the transmission several times to align this port, but once you have the bolt started in, we can continue on snugging and torquing. Okay, we've got that bolt started in, let's snug it up. The torque for this mounting bolt is 48 foot-pounds. Let's remove support from underneath that transmission. After removing support, we can continue on to our 3 mounting bolts holding the engine mount to that subframe. Snug them up. The torque for these is 112 foot-pounds. The 2 rear bolts are snugged. Let's make our way to the forward mounting bolt next. Once you have that snug, if you can get a torque wrench in this area, torque the mounting bolt to 112 foot-pounds. It's time to start installing our 2 front control arms. The process for one is going to be the exact same thing as the other. An important note about installing the control arms is when you try to align everything, you may have to pull out on your steering knuckle. When you pull out on the steering knuckle, you want to pay close attention to each one of your axle boots. You have the outer CV boot here, and you have the inner CV boot over in this direction. Let's just make sure that we do not cause any damage as we continue on. When we go to install our lower control arms, I typically like to start with the rearward hockey puck bushing. This one's going to be the most difficult to get into place. It's going to slide into the subframe in here. Once we have the control arm in, you're going to find that the bushing does not align properly. You'll have to use something inside of the 2 ports, align them, and then slide your mounting bolt up and through. For this, I'm just using an awl. Couple light taps with a rubber mallet if necessary. Just bring this right up and through here. Okay. To continue aligning this, you can use an extension with an 18mm. We can pivot that mounting bolt around as necessary. Once you feel as though you do have it aligned, lightly tap with a rubber mallet. Now that we have that bolt up and through there, I'm going to continue on with my 21mm nut up along the top. Now at this point, we're only starting this on, we're leaving it loose. Let's continue on to the rest of the hardware. Now we'll just go ahead and start flexing this. We're going to have to get the forward bushing up and into the subframe as well. We'll continue on with our bolt with a washer. Slide it straight on through there, start it in, leave it loose. Now we're going to align the ball joint stud with the steering knuckle. Once you feel as though you have it aligned, you may need to tap it up into the proper position using a rubber mallet. Now let's continue on with our bolts coming through from the front to the rear. Let's just start on that mounting nut. Now once we have the hardware in position, the next thing we have to do is get the suspension into the original ride height position, as if the vehicle was sitting on the ground. Once you've applied upward pressure safely underneath your control arm, we'll continue on snugging each one of our mounting bolts. Now we'll torque this to 118 foot-pounds. The torque for this bolt will be 135 foot-pounds. Now it's time for the ball joint to the steering knuckle mounting bolt and mounting nut. I'm holding the bolt head with a 15mm wrench. We'll tighten our 18mm nut. The torque for this will be 60 foot-pounds. Remove support from under your control arm. Repeat the process for the other side of the vehicle. Once you have that control arm in and torqued as it should be, we'll continue on to our belly pan. Now it's time to reinstall our lower splash shield. When installing your splash shield, we want to start with each one of our 6 mounting bolts. I'm starting along the front. I'm going to start them in, but we want to leave them loose for now. We'll continue on along the back side. Once you have them started in, go ahead and snug them up. Along each side of that shield, we also need to install each one of our 2 push pins. For those push pins, go ahead and start in the outer portion first, lock it in with the center by pressing it in fully. Repeat the process on each side. It's time to install the wheel. When installing your wheel, we're going to get it in place. Install your center cover and all 5 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out, get the wheels safely on the ground, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Now that we have this wheel on, let's go over to the other side of the vehicle. We'll do the exact same thing. The wheels safely on the ground, we'll be torquing these in a crisscross manner to that 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Now that we have this wheel torqued, make sure you torque your left front wheel as well. After you've torqued both of your front wheels, hop in the passenger compartment. Pump up the brake pedal, confirming it's nice and firm. After that, you can go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test, listen for any odd noises, and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.